Good morning, everyone. It is November 6th, 2025. It's Thursday. It's about 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm just starting my early morning. Anyway, before we get started, if you are enjoying this content, please feel free to drop us a like, click to subscribe, or even drop us a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. There's a lot of content in these videos, and that would definitely help us out. So, all right, let's jump into it. So first, let's start where we left off. Last we left off, we were in this section right over here. We just got the bounce and we started to get some kind of relief from this dump that was happening. Now, I'd like to jump in a little bit closer here to take a look at what's going on the lower time frames. So you can see how a bounce works and we start to grab some strength, right? So here we have this bounce here. And if you notice, we've got kind of this swing failure pattern, right? And I was mentioning before that when there are wicks, and the bodies get caught up inside of these wicks, and we've got this reversal, that is a swing failure pattern, right? So yes, so that's what we got right over here. We've got this swing failure pattern that happened, and it hit an area of support. There was previous support to the left of the chart, and now we need to see if it's going to follow through. Right now, we don't know if it's going to follow through. We don't know exactly what it's going to do. This could have just been, a momentary thing where this was really the area to grab along, and this will completely fail and continue down. It's a possibility. No one really knows what's going to happen right now. But these candles will start to play around in this section, especially right over here. This whole green zone that I've got here, I'd like to call it, I like to consider it in my head like it's mud, but it's not, because what happens is the chart ends up struggling. There becomes like this little battle that goes back and forth between people who think it's going to go to zero and people who are going to go to the moon. And this is how the order block is created. It's created from supply and demand, and just everything that's happening. So we can consolidate in this area, so we can kind of bounce around in this spot like this. So what we would be looking for, though, is we would be looking for it to tap down over here, tap down on this line at least once, maybe twice. And if it can grab some support, like let's just pretend that it looked like this, right? Then it's going to go a little bit higher, because it also tests out the area that it broke out of. So this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this line to be touched. And, truth be told, if you didn't catch along in this section, it's not, oh, I missed it. That's like that's something that you end up putting in your mind, and you miss opportunities if you kind of put concrete on your feet. So what you look for is you look for other opportunities that you might have missed, right? So if you were over here, you missed that opportunity, look, it came back. Oh, you missed this opportunity, look, it came back. And it happens throughout the chart so often. And this ends up being the area of opportunity. This becomes an area of opportunity. And then this became like a greater area of opportunity because it actually broke above the 50% line. So you have to look at this in sort of like quadrants of some sort. So while I'm looking at this section, this is the section that we are in right now. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this section, and it could be that we kind of like use this yellow line here as the area of support, but also like a telling story. So in this area here, I mean, if you were buying spot, I mean, it's a good area to buy spot, because whether you were buying spot up here or up here, when you get up here, that didn't matter so much. I mean, it becomes something where, oh, I caught the bottom. It's nice to say, but this is the bottom of the range. So you have to look at it as a section. Did you catch this section? So I am looking for it to come over here, but also, like, we are in a downtrend, and this this trend line needs to be touched one more time. So here's what I'm seeing. I am seeing, first of all, this needs to be touched. So here we go. This needs to be touched, and this needs to be touched. So if we were to come over here and grab some strength, then I think we're going to come over here, and I am looking for some sort of rejection. I'm not looking for it to pop right out the bat. It has to touch one more time, and it could consolidate. We can tap down over here, and we can go touch this. It can consolidate like this and then break out. It can do that, but I'm not looking for it to break the line outright, because we've got one touch, two touch, and we kind of need a third. So yeah, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that. Now, we've been talking about these wicks forming, If there's a wick like this, I say it needs to be filled out. If it's a big wick, it needs to be filled out. This is a prime example right there. This got filled out, and then this wick right here, this got filled out, and every time it got filled out, it was overshot. And I was looking for this candle over here. Now we've got these two wicks that are sitting here. And it's a little bit different. Because it's a swing failure pattern, yeah, of course, these wicks should be filled out. But I don't think it's necessary for it to be filled out right now. Because, let's zoom up a little bit. So just follow the logic here for a second. If this wick needed to be filled out, well, it was just filled out by this one. So if I were to call this like a full bar, like leave it like that, then that would be acceptable. Then we can move on, we can move forward. But these candles were filled out. And if I go down to a lower time frame, you'll see what I mean. Let's go down to the 5 minute. And you can see there's not really, like here's a big wick. I wouldn't consider that a big wick, but I do consider this being, you know, the zone that it needed to touch. So at this point, even though there are two wicks there, I do feel like it's a good enough reaction that we don't necessarily have to go back down and fill it. Now, everything in these charts are an if-then scenario. So I have this plan that if we get some support over here and we bounce over here, then we're heading up to the top of the range. That's what my first scenario is. But my second scenario is, what happens if it doesn't do that? What happens if it comes down here and it breaks lower? Well, if it breaks lower, then we're going to have to reassess our whole range. We're going to have to wait for it to create some kind of range and just kind of chill out for a little while. Because we can't just start assuming that it's going to appear places. Now, there are, you know, hints and clues in the past that will show us support and resistance. And it would be right over here. Here is the previous range that it got stuck in, where it came out of. So this range right over here, it has a 50% line. It's got a, you know, an area of support, an area of resistance. This was the breakout. It was tested. The breakout was tested a couple times. So we would be looking in this area here for a clue as to where it may go next. Now, I don't feel like the structure is broken at all. In fact, we can actually come down to right around here. Right here. We can come down to probably about here and still retain a bullish structure on Bitcoin before we go down to the bear market. This is like 100%. Yeah, we're going to have to like step back for a little bit. But if you look, here's a range right over here, and this is a range right over here, right? And if I were to pull this out, I mean, we do have this section. So this section actually gets engulfed in here, just like so. So let me clean this up a little bit more so you can understand what I'm thinking, all right? So if this is the top of the range, and this is the secondary bottom of the range, look, we've got an even bigger range to work in. And this looks like consolidation. Not only does it look like consolidation, it also looks like a really a big stretch of a range. This looks like it's the 50% area, which is where we are right now if I were to convert this over to a big range. So is it possible that we come down over here? Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely possible for us to come down here. And if we do come down here, I will be even more bullish. Because again, you know, these charts, they need to play their ranges. They need to. It's just how they work. That's the idea of consolidation. So in order for them to move on to the next zone, whether it's down below or up above, it has to like complete its previous range. So, and because we're talking about quadrants, you know, these areas here of opportunity are smaller boxes, and when you pull out to the bigger picture, you can see a bigger range that we're stuck in. And then if you pull out even more, you can see a bigger range that we're in. So is it possible for us to come down here? I mean, is this the breaking point? Yeah, I do. I think that this right here is the breaking point for us to go lower. You know, maybe we come down over here. Okay, so now it becomes a real critical part in Bitcoin and in your moves to say, all right, well, how will I allocate my money, right? If I'm going to trade this or I'm going to get in there, how do I do this? Do I, you know, go all in over here, or do I store some dry powder on the side so that if it does come down over here, then I can get, you know, I could tap in there. Because I do think that, you know, numbers wise, I think we need to come and break out of this range over here and move up. So if you were over here and you caught along, you know, some spot in that section, then I think you're doing yourself some justice. Bitcoin's not going away, you know. So that's how I'm seeing the chart. as far as that goes, like this was my if-then scenario, right? So if we grab some strength here and we work our way back up, we're coming over here. And then eventually, what I'm looking for is to break out of this zone, because we've got 1 touch, 2 touch. We'll have a 3rd touch at that point, and hopefully, you know, it kind of moves up and continues. And I feel like that's going to happen because the S&P 500 has been taking such a huge rally. And if the S&P 500 is consolidating before it starts to work its way down, then it's not gonna really give that much of an influence on the Bitcoin chart. If all of a sudden the stock market drops because the two of them influence each other, or actually the S&P, you know, and the Nasdaq, the stock market, it influences each other. When the stock market goes down, then we see Bitcoin goes down. That's what happens. And if on the other hand though, if the market, the stock market is consolidating, well, that gives Bitcoin a little bit more free reign to run up. So while the S&P 500 has been looking like this and it needs to do a retrace, the retrace would give me the reason why it would come down over here somewhere. But if it doesn't do a V shape and instead it does something like this as a change of direction, where it starts to consolidate up here, well then it may just give Bitcoin the opportunity to break out and you know, take a solid run. So that's why I feel that we're going to be heading over to the top of the range. I feel like this is the range of consolidation for us to move to the next step. But again, there is a good possibility that we drop lower. So I plan for both, right? So here is the section that I'm going to stay in. Now, I do not want to go very far out of this chart. It's important that I try to find an area that I feel is pretty clear, like a clear opportunity. And that's why I don't overtrade. Everything that I put in these videos, you could see that days in advance. Like you can tap every time that I take a long or a short, and I let you guys know. Like you can just watch those zones, and you can get into it. Like there's plenty of time. This is not like a sniper's moment. So could we come back down here and play like here? Yes. And if we do, I will be adding on to my long again that I'm in. I've taken some profit already. I've taken a good amount of profit, especially on Ethereum. And if we come down here, then I may do a rinse and repeat until we break this line. This is my zone of strength. And then because we've got this trend line over here, I would be looking for it to touch it in some kind of way. So I would be looking for these opportunities. The lower that it goes, the more this is a shortened opportunity. This is a shortened opportunity. And then goodbye, right? So that's that. I hope that was clear. Now, let's jump over into Ethereum real quick. By the way, I'm sorry, this chart looks really messy. I really need to adjust it all because it just looks pretty terrible. It's hard to see. I've got way too much noise on the chart. But this is the zone that we're in right here. We took out this wick like I was looking for, and I am looking for this to grab some strength over here. If it grabs some strength, then we are definitely moving back into the previous range that we were struggling with before. And I am looking for Ethereum, if it does come back into this range, I am looking for Ethereum to really kind of like rip out of here. So I have a long on Ethereum, and I'm actually looking to add on to my long right now because I've taken profit a few times actually. I think I've gotten a good amount. So if it does come back down over here, I'm going to have the same exact plan that I have for Bitcoin, which is to throw some of my profit in there and rinse and repeat until, unless it breaks down lower. And if it breaks down lower, yeah, I think we're heading over into this section for sure. But I'm not going to stress that yet because of where we're at. So far so good. I have a long down here. This is where I caught it. I caught it down here, and you could see, the swing failure pattern that's happening. So this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some strength. I mean, it doesn't have to bounce a lot of times here, but even one touch would be great. And we could see if it's going to start to grab some strength in this area. I may actually, depending on, if it goes a little bit lower in this section, definitely I'm going to add on to my long. But if I do feel like there's going to be some strength in this area, if I do see a couple of bounces that are happening, I may take a swing at adding on to my long again in this section. It's a little bit more risky because of the gap that's over here. This is a pretty big gap. So I would prefer to wait for this rather than this. But I do feel like we're in a really good spot right now to visually see where we're going. Okay, guys, let me just jump into the S&P 500 real quick so we can take a look at that. Where are we? This is it. So yeah, it looks like we filled, well, we definitely filled this one because we came through it. There's that gap there is filled. It looks like this was a gap here, and it filled in halfway on this one, and we filled in halfway on this one. So these these order blocks are basically mitigated at this point. So this is not the chart that I was showing before. This is a different S&P. This is the one that I've been charting the whole time from all the other previous videos. And you can see we've got that one gap that's right there that got completely filled in. And we touched the middle of the range of this channel that it was in. Notice that it tried to break out and tried to break out one more time, and it came in and touched this. I mean, you know, this channel is relevant. If you don't see it, I don't know what you're looking at. So what I'm looking for is eventually this channel has to break out in one way or another. And we really haven't tested the bottom that often as the top. Like, there is definitely pressure going upwards. But again, a change in direction would look something like this. It would look something like this. So notice that we're here. Boy, I'm just like scribbling some weird drawings. So notice that we're right here, like so. Okay. And then here, what we can do is we've got a touch over here, a touch over here. So this could be the start of a consolidation range. So if we get that, then yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for this to really continue up. I'm looking for it to actually start to struggle a little bit. So this is what, if I highlight this area and I highlight this area right over here, and we zoom out a bit. Oh, I can't zoom out. But if I make like a you know, a thin, smaller representation of what that is, or what it looks like. What's happening here? What's going on here? Something just happened. Give me a second. Oh, there we go. Okay. If I make a smaller oh yeah, see? I said something was happening and something was. Let's erase that. If I make a smaller representation of it, this is what I'm looking for right here, for a change of direction. Right? So this is what I'm hoping for the S&P. And during this time right here, I would be looking for Bitcoin to make a run. So now, again, we'll see what happens. If it does come down over here and it breaks out of this, then we are looking at more of a tighter drop. So this is the area right over here to look for. If we break that, we're going lower. All right, guys, I hope it was clear what my plans are. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment down below. And again, you know, if you are liking these videos, you know, give us a like and subscribe. That would be very helpful. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.